A 1, 2, 3.
Gonna walk that promenade, yeah, we're gonna rock that promenade, be the talk of that promenade, looking for a star drifter, not a shapeshifter, lots to do and more to see, sweet sticks from a jump to tree, oh, oddities, opportunities, free advice, but not for cheapo gambling wheels, shaded deals, meet me back here tomorrow, please. Walk that promenade. Yeah, we're gonna rock that promenade.
Hello and good evening for this February 19th, 2024 Star Trek DS9 Season 7, Episode 13, Field of Fire is over, and it has been for 25 years. But we're just getting started here on Live Long and Podcast. I'm Dave Mader, a live stream here on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitch. I'm joined with, once again, a great panel here as we go on our mission to talk about every episode of Star Trek DS9 here on this Family Day weekend. Also, happy President's Day if you're south of the border. First up, we got the inimitable Kevin Millard.
Hello, Dave.
Hello.
Nice melon.
Inimitable and confused.
Yes,
I do have a nice melon.
Nice melon, yes. And coming to us, the relentless, the redoubtable Adam Woodward.
Hey, I'm actually celebrating both. I'm in America this fine evening and celebrating President's Day, though I don't know really what happens on President's Day. And then I'm with my family, so I'm celebrating Family Day.
Yes, well, welcome, Adam. Yes, it's Family Day and President's Day. I think President's Day is when you celebrate George Washington and Abraham Lincoln's birthdays, more specifically. It's kind of like their version.
Kind of ironic if they both had the same birthday on the same day. That'd be
yeah. I don't think they have the same birthday, but it's kind of like, you know, like Victoria Day in Canada being sort of this monarch birthday day.
Sure.
Right? Or, yeah, I think that's how it goes. But in Canada, it's just a weekend we made up in February.
The only good thing that Dalton McGuinty did.
Is it a Dalton McGuinty gift? And I think other provinces have versions of it. I think in PEI, it's Islander Day. I'm not sure if it's a holiday in Newfoundland. Is Sam with us in the chat? He is here. Sam, is it a holiday in Newfoundland? And if so, what's it called? Is it called Family Day? Anyway, guys, we're here to talk about the Field of Fire, or just Field of Fire. Leave out the. This episode of DS9, we'll be spoiling it. It's the 163rd episode of the show. It is the 13th episode of the 7th season, and it's a murder mystery story. You know, somebody's killing people on the station. We're in the middle of a war. But this is going on. It's Family Day in Newfoundland. Thank you. And it's the second time with the second family. Okay. Thank you, Sam. Welcome. All right. Adam, how was this episode for you? Field of Fire.
Too many questions, Dave, at the end. You know what? It was a good start. I kind of enjoyed it. Was going where it was going. I like a good mystery. But man, did that wrap up fast. I have so many.
Right.
Like what?
Well,
there's too much more here. Oh, look
right.
at this. Very nice of Sam, by the way.
It's also a Trill focused episode. It's about a former host of a symbiote and what that means to Ezri, and it's a lot about this alien character and sort of this this other, you know, the science fiction sort of based thing, and how it factors into the current events that particular host is experiencing. Kevin, Field of Fire. How is this one for you?
I like this. It's okay. I have a couple of questions about it. Like, why does Ezri get the call every time someone dies? Doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And why is she keeping Duran a secret? This episode would have made so much more sense if, like, she didn't want to, and like Cisco had to convince her to because it's the only way to catch this guy. But the fact that she's doing this on her own and telling no one makes it make no sense that she is involved in the investigation at all.
Yeah, okay. I think in terms of the writing and sort of the logic of the episode, I think there's a lot of things you can kind of pick apart here if you're looking hard enough, or maybe not even that hard. In terms of
looking that hard, Dave.
I wasn't having to have to look that hard, and I was feeling like, okay, well, you have this even just the consistency of what had happened and what had been established in previous episodes about Duran and sort of this previous host. And he talks about Curzon suppressed me. Well, it was completely suppressed by the Trill thing. Curzon had no idea that Duran was a previous host for all of Curzon's life. So that that's not even a factor here. Jedzia only found out about it in that season 3 episode, right after they got the Defiant. They used the Defiant to take Jedzia to Trill. It was they turned it into an ambulance. They're like, it's the greatest warship in the quadrant, and it's doing runs to Trill. But that had been set up previously. And so, yeah, like this idea of I can access the memories of this previous host to try is almost a Hannibal Lecter sort of Silence of the Lambs-esque story here. Kind of told with,
but the whole wrap up with the, I'm sure we're going to get there, but the whodunit part of it was just so quick, and again, wasn't really explained.
Yeah, well, it's kind of, I think that it's a little bit it's a Vulcan who's the killer in the end. Isn't that interesting? I guess, but she's like, why? He's like, logic demanded it, and we're like, okay, that's it. There's those questions. And then she kind of just reintegrates with Duran at the end, and then it's a kind of a Star Trek Enterprise ending, right? It's kind of just over. Is kind of a little bit how it felt. Now we're getting closer to when Star Trek Enterprise started, which is only not even a few years after this, right? 2 years later, Enterprise came out. So they were maybe heading towards those kind of abrupt, and then the story's over. Now on to the next one. Sort of that sort of pacing. I don't know. Okay, you guys, let's walk through this episode. But for me, I gotta tell you, this wasn't working so well in terms of that thing I mentioned with Curzon. I think that Worf comes out of nowhere here in this kind of quiet seat in the promenade in the middle of the night. That's sort of unsettling. I still was there's a lot of dream sequences, which is not common for Star Trek, but they do happen.
Don't you guys think, again, that Odo, who's supposed to be this great security officer and
supposedly the greatest ever in the history of the Federation, the entire quadrant, right?
And Sisko is telling him what to do, little things maybe you should not, bag that weapon up or do something. It was very disappointing that Ezri had to take over the investigation.
Well, yes, because Ezri has nothing to do because she's got Vic doing her job. So then Ezri has time to do Odo's job.
Right.
You're the best law enforcement officer in this sector. Maybe the whole damn quadrant.
You see, though? No, not quite. Odo is kind of a miss here. We're gonna get to it, but I'm coming out swinging here. Odo has to wear goggles for this melon experiment where he's a changeling. He doesn't need goggles. Okay,
nice melon.
I was watching this with Ashley, and I said that. I was like, he doesn't even have eyes. Those aren't real.
They're approximations. Have the writer of this episode seen the show? But it's Robert Hewitt Wolf, and he definitely has.
Well, did you notice who directed this?
It's directed by Tony Dow.
Tony Dow. Wait a second.
Oh, Tony Dow.
Tony Dow, the great Tony Dow. Wally Cleaver.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is that why? Okay. Maybe this will help me understand some things about this episode as I get into it. All right. Let's bring up the screenshots as we walk. Where does this episode start, guys? It starts in Quarks. As we're getting this great speech for Hector Elario. Is that his name? Yeah. He's the young DS9 crew member who has recently piloted the Defiant in this great battle that we didn't get to see. Where's that in the show? No. It's just there was some good stuff. It happened. Trust us. But here on the station,
and Adam, on first watch, did you know this guy was going to die immediately?
Well, I read I had to guess who it was going to be, but yes, like,
He was just the murder victim to be.
he's just too happy. He's drunk.
Yeah.
Right. They're toasting him. Bashir and O'Brien in particular are on quite a roll here as they're going on and on. Cisco's not even present for this. It feels like Cisco should be giving these speeches, but they're coming on here. Yes. Some of this fun stuff from Bashir.
This is no time to be modest.
No time to be honest. This inspired
cherub.
And the crew of the USS Defiant.
The USS Defiant.
O'Brien says that Deep Space Nine is the best posting in the galaxy.
It's the best posting in the galaxy.
Wow, there's some big moments here, guys, in this opening scene. I think it's my favorite scene.
To be the best posting in the galaxy.
The best posting in the galaxy.
Why the hell are they all complaining all the goddamn time?
I don't
stuck
know.
in one place all the time, and
they call this guy an ensign, but he's clearly wearing Lieutenant Pips. I don't quite get it. But he's
only
like
22.
Yeah, he's only 22. They say he's a young, the inspired cherub.
This inspired cherub.
He wet behind the ears, he said. But they're like, tell us anything. Well, any request we'll grant. He's like, can I come to your hollow suite to live out the Battle of the Alamo? And they said, no, it can't happen. It's too personal. It's off. That's an off limits.
When you have a holosuite visit, it's sort of a personal experience.
Personal experience.
Right. So this reaction of theirs, it's definitely sex stuff, right? Going on in the holodeck, like
it seemed
definitely.
Like that, Kevin. It
right?
seems very heavily implied.
They were getting very uncomfortable, and yes, Kevin, I thought that too. Like, what's really going on at the Alamo?
Right.
Yeah.
Like
it's a reimagining. It's a reimagining.
Like
of
Kira and Ezri, they are making looks here like they know something's up. We never see Keiko. Where's Keiko?
Right. And what do they say after? We know when we're not wanted.
We know when we're not. Yeah. He's like, have you ever gone? They're like, no, we know. The way they just
do
react.
keep inviting Odo.
They do keep getting invited Odo. Yeah, there's some interesting things there, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, Quark brings them their program. They're off. They're like, see you later. We recommend you do it. But yeah, there's sort of like, Ezri says, we know when we're not wanted, which I thought would be a great clip to have on the board,
I know when I'm not wanted.
Yeah. So apparently it's like many hours later at the bar, this young lieutenant or ensign, he's polishing off a few drinks. They say we should have called it a night a few hours ago. So they start carrying him out of there. Ezri says, I used to do this for a young ensign, Cisco, when he was on Bolaris, which is, I guess, where the Bolians come from, right? So, which Kira finds is amusing. She walks him to his quarters, which is in her part of the station, I guess. And right from the beginning, we see the bowl of fruit, but there's also the photograph from the Academy. He keeps talking about being from the Academy class of 2372, which is 3 years before this. So, he's not exactly right out of the Academy. He's been out for about 3 years if he graduated in 72. Anyway, showing his classmates. Apparently, one who we find out later, one of these guys is dead, and one of them is on their ship. I don't know. So that's they're setting up. He's a nice guy. He's got his friends. He's young, and he's a young cherub, inspired cherub from the crew of the Defiant. He tries to hit on Ezri, and she kind of, brushes him off. But he's
waiting for that. Like, as soon as she went into his room with him, I go, oh boy.
Yeah,
but
he's like
far less creepy than Quark or
Bashir.
Yeah,
no, it was actually endearing. He was like, hey, I think you're pretty cute, and she was like, you're drunk. He's like, but tomorrow I won't be. And he was like,
and you'll still be beautiful, Dave.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice melon,
right? So overnight at Deep Space Nine, Ezri's woken by her alarm. We got a couple. She's getting her coffee in the morning, and then she's hearing
like a whole 3 hours sleep here.
Yeah, she was only they said it was like 6:30 when they woke her up or something. So she's only been sleeping for about 3 hours. But there's a commotion outside in the quarters, as around the corner in Hector Ilario's quarters. He is dead, but if you do watch, you can see him breathing. But he's dead. He, what happened? And Odo's like, he's been murdered.
What I find interesting is that she was the last one to see this one alive.
Yes.
This is the only one she doesn't get a call about.
Right. She is the most obvious person to go to next. Like, what happened? What did he seem like this? Or, he's like, she's like, her statement would be key. Maybe it happens.
Best security man in the quadrant.
Best damn, maybe the whole sector. So and Bashir, he says she's been.
It appears someone shot him.
It appears someone's shot him.
This is the funniest scene for me. Is like this whole, like, they're talking about a gun with a bullet. What is this?
What's a powder burn? Have you ever heard of such a thing? That's not present here. Even the title of this episode, I think, is a little weak too. Field of Fire. I don't get really, you're in the field of fire, but like, because I think they're showing us like that idea of like looking through walls with the sci-fi stuff, like Superman style, that we'll see later on. But anyway, Sisko's here. He's got Odo and O'Brien on this. He's like, what the hell? How did this guy die? This is a murder investigation. He starts telling, us, asking O'Brien to talk to us about the AR-558 rifle or something like that, which is like a kinetic rifle, which no one uses anymore. But, they said, well, we started developing it, but, for like situations where phasers don't work, which we see happens all the time in Star Trek. I think Voyager in particular had a ton of episodes where phasers didn't work, right? And and they're like, well, but then O'Brien's like, they abandoned that for self-modulating phasers or something, which and
it didn't work. Obviously
it didn't work because they still don't work. So it seemed like it's kind of weird to me that at least not some aliens use kinetic weapons or something, because it's not like you see everyone wearing force fields that would make these sort of irrelevant. But maybe that's what is going on. But at the time, they weren't explaining all that.
It all got me in. Particularly the 2009 Star Trek, when they were fighting on Nero's ship, and you heard like things fire, twanging off of metal, like when they were fighting with those weapons. Yeah,
it seemed like the Sona had some weapons like that, right? Which came out around this time, this year. So I don't know. It's not in the writing of this episode. Yeah. But yeah, like find out it's a titanium bullet, which would seem especially deadly. Thanks to Robert Hewitt Wolf, the writer of this episode, and as we mentioned, Leave It to Beaver himself, Wally Beaver.
No, this is
no,
not Beaver.
Director's Wally.
The director, yes. I'm sorry, the director, not the writer. But they kind of come up with the thing that this is probably a kinetic rifle that's I don't know. They kind of come up with this idea that it has to be a Starfleet rifle, but that's just one theory. Like that doesn't have to be the only thing that could fire a titanium bullet, right? Like there's a lot of theories here, but they kind of explain this to us. It's not Law and Order, guys.
Well, thank goodness for Chief O'Brien, because he knows everything and he was able to explain it. So
right, like this is O'Brien and Sisko explaining to Odo what has happened.
Right.
Like
Odo's supposed to be the best detective ever, isn't he?
Yeah, because he reads novels and knows what a powder burn is. Like,
well, yeah, he talks about that. Okay, and not to mention, like, you could probably use Worf. I know he's not in security anymore, but he's probably like a guy you would want in the room here for this discussion. I think it's like him not being included here is a little odd. So it's, but anyway, like that's the choice they made.
But O'Brien is there.
O'Brien's, and Bashir, of course, is here, I guess, because the guy's dead, right? But
yeah,
it seems like Bashir's work here is kind of over, unless he's here as forensics, I guess. This is the forensic team they put together to figure out what is what happened here to Ilario, who killed him. Was it a Starfleet officer? If that's a disturbing thought.
Disturbing thought, isn't it?
Yes. And Odo's like, don't worry. Sisko's giving it to Odo at one point, and Odo's just like, don't worry, I will catch this guy. See you later. I'm off. There's a scene here in Quarks between Ezri, O'Brien, and Bashir, where they're kind of like, just kind of stunned the idea that there could be a Starfleet crew member who's murdering somebody else, which seems a bit odd to me, because I think we saw a little bit of this in the original series, so it's not like it's unheard of in Star Trek for this to happen. And just they're like, well, we should have let him come to the holodeck with us. you know, why not? We could have included him. And they're like, but anyway, you know, they didn't even know how many brothers and sisters he had. They were kind of just sad about how they didn't really know a ton about him. He had only been there for 10 days on the station. He had just got there. They'd been on one mission. You know,
nobody knew him. He was
no one really knew him.
Out of that 10 days, 9 of them were on the ship or something, right? Or
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Most of the
7,
time,
I think they say
10 days and 7 on the Defiant of those 10. So yeah, he was they had just met him really. And he was one of the best pilots ever, you know, and he gets a Starfleet funeral here. Ezri's kind of sad, and she's talking about like Spears like, don't blame yourself. She's like, I don't, but I'm kind of like freaked out that there's a murder here. And she talks about her former host, Joran, being the murderer, and she's like, well, he's like, you're nothing like him, right? So this is where I was left thinking about the trill and the joint trills, and sort of this idea of like, how much are they individual from each other, and how much does Dax influence each host, right? Because Duran murdered people, yes, Duran Dax was a murderer, and therefore Dax is a murderer, right? Or it's just this whole idea of like, was Dax already Sisko's friend when he met Jadzia Dax and Ezri Dax? Yes, right. So that's true. That part of Dax moves on. So what, how much does move on or not move on? As we find out, I guess in this episode, quite a bit does actually transfer on. Dax is forever changed by being joined to Duran.
Right, and like she says, they say that at the end of the episode, right? He says, you won't be able to suppress me
anymore
like the
now.
Others, right? Like,
and she's like, yeah, I know. Now you're as much a part of me as all the rest.
Yeah,
right, which is kind of the whole point of it. Here's that dream sequence where the first of many, where she's like, oh, you caught the murderer, Odo? He's like, we find out, we see it's the guy who died, Ilario, and then he tries to strangle her. This was the best, where Odo comes out here. He's like,
There's nothing more annoying than a corpse with a mind of its own.
with a mind of its own. She sees blood on her hands. I guess these are visions relating to everything, these memories of being Duran Dax coming front of mind, and sort of, haunting Ezri here in having recently seen Ilario's death and wanting to solve this and everything else. You see the visions. Duran's appears. They get a new actor here than the person who had previously played Duran. This guy got way more personality than the previous guy ever did. The other guy was
he's more menacing.
He's way more menacing. Because you remember when Jadzia Dax had her Gintana or whatever, and she met, Duran was in Sisko's body, remember, for behind the force field, and tried to get through the force field and was crazy. This guy felt more like that guy, and so he kind of works here. Versus in the original episode where we met Duran Dax, he was this creepy looking piano player,
and kind of mousy, and it also was sort of represented that he did kill that doctor, but he had a reason.
He had a reason,
and 3 people. They've changed this entirely.
It feels like it was a retcon. Yeah, I was like, I don't remember the 3 murders. I remember a murder, and sort of this idea that
helps that I've just watched this episode.
It was more presented that in that episode that Duran Dax was an unsuitable host because he was basically unhinged, and this person is also unhinged, but more of a psychopath, straight up sort of a dark personality. And I don't know how long it's been since. Sorry.
In that first episode, he seems more of a victim of circumstance than really evil.
Right. So I guess it was all kind of retconned in that Gintana thing when they did that episode, which was more recent. So Adam, do you have any thoughts on this? I don't know how long it's been since you've watched the episode where they first set up the Duran's backstory.
I thought that this character of him was much more believable as a murderer. He's got the intensity I think they needed. And I really did I did like this part of the episode, actually, how he was pushing Ezri to, take on that role. To know how they think, you got to experience it. Let's do it.
Right. Yep. Exactly. You got to go for it. But then we see. Okay, Ezri we'll get to the scene where Ezri basically tries to murder somebody in the middle of Quarks. But yeah, we get some of Duran's music here. It's kind. I think they kept the same music as they did in the original episode. I think that was maybe the one thing they carried through here. He setting up that worm in your belly used to be mine, and him's just sort of like appearing in front of Ezri as Ezri tries to walk away from the vision of Duran. He keeps constantly popping in front of her, saying, "You need me, you need me," and she's like, "I'm nothing like you. I have nothing." And this kind of haunting. I think she gets like thrown off the top of the promenade, even though it's a dream. And then she wakes up in her bed, kind of shocked by the whole thing, So I kind of appreciate what they were trying to go for here. Like, I don't dislike this stuff. But then like there's a call. There's been another murder. And it's this lieutenant commander in the science division. They're, trying to figure out what the plot is, but Starfleet officers are being murdered. People are dying. People, Cisco would say.
But do you think, again, I thought this would have warranted a little more discussion on the promenade with other officers. Like something's going on. Like we got to watch out for each other, and they just missed that whole opportunity, I think.
Yeah, like it's kind of like it's really downplayed and it's kind of kept quiet. It feels like because like they're killing Starfleet officers at random. Now, the only thing that the two victims have in common initially, it seems, is they're both human, but that's not necessarily a huge giveaway of anything, and then eventually the third victim is Bolian, so that kind of throws that off as well. But they're both Starfleet officers, but that's the only thing they have in common. And Ezri Dax, they're calling upon her counseling skills. How is your forensic psychology? At the academy, she's like, well, I didn't get it wasn't my favorite subject. I didn't get an A in that one, but I'll give it a go here. I'm never quite sure how big the counseling staff is.
I don't think she really knows anything.
It's kind of presented that way in the writing, it's like she's never shown as being as competent as she should be.
Or confident, or even confident, not competent, confident in her abilities,
Especially when she's dealing with Cisco. She's like, oh, whatever,
Which you would think she'd be the most comfortable with, right?
You think.
Having now being the third lifetime. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that she's known him.
Like when we were introduced to her back in the beginning of this season, I thought that relationship with them, like she did appear much more confident when they were traipsing around the desert. And but yeah, right. You're right, Kevin. On the station, she seems to have lost that confidence.
So can we blame this on Wally Cleaver? Is the question. Because he directed this episode. He didn't pull Nicole DeBoer aside and say, you need to be more confident like you were in like episode 1 of this season. Remember or 2 when you walked in on Cisco and you guys went off the desert thing? Can you give me some of that? Like that's the directors
or give her some of the other mirror universe Ezri that we liked so much last week.
Yeah, can you give me more mirror Ezri? Or were they like, no, because you just were mirror Ezri, you need to be more mousy here.
She wanted to be more like mirror Ezri, remember that? So
yeah, in real life, yeah. Or she had said, like, I wish you would write my character like this all the time. But they're like, no, you're gonna play it timid. Anyway, let's go to the scene in the promenade between O'Brien and Bashir where they're talking about things and like trying to figure out how this murderer is doing it, like not being there. And Bashir starts talking about the Davy Crockett biography, how people used to name their guns, give them women's names. O'Brien says
Maybe I'll start calling my tricorder Sally.
Why Sally? Why not Keiko?
What? He doesn't want to fight with his tricorder.
He has a phaser too, but he would never like. This is explained, with the whole stuff, and then like basically Bashir's talking about it, but this gets O'Brien thinking because it was the ricochet thing. Davy Crockett had the pans and could like fire a bullet off of a frying pan or a few frying pans and hit another target, and he's like, "That's it." He's using a very sophisticated, futuristic thing, but because you put it into a metaphor, I can relate to that. That's like the Star Trek thing, right? So, it works here, and Brian says, You're a genius, Bashir. He's like, huh? Whatever. Don't thank me. Thank Davy Crockett.
Well, don't thank me. Thank David Crockett.
That's right. And then the melon. Oh, there it is.
Nice melon.
It's a scene that makes no sense. Well, just to demonstrate how this works, you can shoot through walls with a mini transporter attached to your rifle. The safety eyewear put here. How about a bulletproof vest too? That would be nice.
Yes, just take a step back, Dave. Take a step back.
Take a step back. I'm only gonna fire this gun at you. Like you're off to the side, but like this is. I'd rather be
a
behind.
bullet is going to materialize in the room you're in.
Right. And keep going.
Here's some goggles.
Here's some goggles, which Odo, which we've already established, does not need.
Does not need.
Not at all.
Actually, Odo doesn't need any protection at all. If he gets shot by a bullet, nothing happens.
Yeah, he doesn't have any organs to penetrate. Like it's much better for him than a phaser. A phaser would actually hurt him. But a bullet would be completely useless against him.
This is a very cool idea, though, like how this all happens.
Yes, I do like that. There's some cool like sci-fi ideas presented in this episode, especially with this idea of like, oh yeah, well you can fire the bullet through, like transport it with the transporter, and then it keeps going to wherever it's going, and you have this special device, where you can see through the walls, basically,
So guys, I feel like in any other Star Trek, there'd be like, Cisco would be there and they go, okay, find a way to track this and shut it down.
Yeah. Like if somebody had one of these, like somebody is like, there's already been 2 murders, right? And like it's anonymous, it's random, it's seemingly, right? Like when those kinds of murders happen, people panic. Like, people like start demanding, like remember like this, I think it was a Washington sniper. I don't know how many years ago that was, but like they were just killing people at random for.
That was the highway ones.
Yeah, right. Like they didn't know who they were. They couldn't catch them, and just people were just like walking to their car in like the middle of a shopping mall, and they just die, right? And like, and that went on for a while until like, and people were like, "You need to find this guy," or people. It was 2 of them now because it's insane, right? Like people are just like, you just killed at random. All over the place, and this is kind of that kind of a case. By the way, most of these words on the screen say nothing; they're just gibberish. I looked, but we see Lieutenant Hector Ilario and Lieutenant Commander Greta Vandenberg, the 2 murderers. They had nothing in common. One was married, one was one was old, one was young, one liked like cherry pie, one liked apple pie. It was completely off. Like cats and dogs living together, and Ezra can't figure it out. So she's going through the promenade. I thought this was going to be another dream sequence on the promenade with Ezra. At this point in the episode, she's looking up. She doesn't see anything up there. I was like, it's a dream sequence. Duran's coming back, right? But no, this was real. This empty promenade. It's kind of creepy to see this place in the middle of the night. And why is Ezra out there in the middle of the night is also kind of the question, which is what Worf shows up, because we see a lot of things. She goes up the staircase and eventually Worf is upon her. This goes on for too long, by the way. This scene is way too long. And he's like, well, there's a murderer on the station and you're walking around in the middle of the night. It's more safe on the promenade because people are only being murdered in their quarters, not actually on the promenade. So, but Worf is falling around. The only time Worf is in the episode at all. He's like, how's the investigation going? Not great. He's like, you're going to figure this out because you're Dax and that's what Dax does. Dax won't let it go. Right. That's kind of his little point of the episode. It's okay. It's not the worst thing they could have done.
No, they could use it. What they could have done is use this time more at the end. Explain more what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess this is like
explain more of the Vulcan motive.
Yes.
Yeah, because we don't get any of that with like the character, right? Which I think would have been more interesting. But yeah, this is basically the scene is here also to give Ezra the reason or the advice, the nudge she needs to go through with this ritual and talk to Duran and kind of unbox that part of her, right? So yeah, that's where this conversation leads. It's kind of, you gotta get the mud. You gotta get the boiling mud with the trill, and then you say some words into a mirror on the wall. Who is the creepiest ex-host of them all? Duran. Here he comes on in. That's my little version of it, at least.
I like that. It was really good.
Yeah. So thanks. Here on this Family Day, President's Day weekend, we have all kinds of freestyling going on here. So the little thing didn't work right away, guys. But she had to say it twice, and then Duran kind of appears in the mirror, and then all of a sudden he's like behind her and he can move around. He's an imaginary friend. Now, when this happens, does she not have the memories of Duran anymore, or does she still have the memories of Duran? I think she still does. But this is more his personality, allowing this personality to talk to her. Can she? So
right. She also mentioned that the others had pushed it down so much that it really wasn't part of their I guess, their psyche.
Do you know what? Like this makes me want. Like there's still a chance, Adam, or Kevin, that they could make another future thing with Nicole DeBoer as Esri Dax. Right, like she could still play this character. It's been 25 years, but like they, if they ever had her come out again and play this character, and then she could talk to Terry Farrell's Jedzia Dax, right, or something like that. You could do a scene like that, and find a way to de-age Terry Farrell so she looks like the 1999 version, and then and do something similar. I think that like there's more. With this character, I would like to see, if they're going to do more Star Trek stuff. We got more 7 of 9. There's been other characters that have come back and done stuff. I wouldn't mind seeing more of the Dax character. And
that you really want to see it through Esri?
If it gets Terry Farrell back too as well, I think that would be a win-win. I wouldn't mind seeing sort of like a version of that or story that that's kind of what this episode makes me like say. I would like they've set this up. They could do this subsequently, in another installment if they were to bring this character back. But anyway, that was the biggest like hope I was sort of looking.
Or Worf has to hunt her down because Duran has taken over, and now she's
or that murderous part of her is actually taken over, or become a key part of the personality. Because if she was able to like figure out all that engineering stuff during that siege on the planet, like clearly like the murderous parts, and we see that she almost murders this guy in Quarks, but I don't know if that's because she's not as trained as some of the other host initiates, within the Trill, and like that's part of her being sort of more susceptible maybe to suggestion from previous hosts, that we know that had been set up. So it kind of makes sense, but that's not, Esri doesn't really express that, saying like, if I knew what I was doing, maybe I could handle you better. But she's clearly like under the spell. He's kind of like the devil on her shoulder saying, you want to do this, you want to get the rifle, put it in your hand, Esri, you gotta feel it. You gotta feel what the killer feels. But this is like, I think that there's a confusion here on like trying to put yourself in the mindset of the killer and actually activating your own killer instinct, right? Or maybe I don't get it here. Maybe is this, that's where I sort of lose the reality of it a little bit. I don't know. Guys, say something. I don't know.
I think there was the attempt was made to in the writing for her to be pushed into this uncomfortable place for her, meaning that she was going to not try to kill somebody, but certainly experience what it feels like. But I think they fell short of developing her into that. She pushed back at the end of it, which is okay, but it could have been a great scene. It was a good scene for me.
Right. We get more of this rifle in this scene, so maybe let's talk a little bit about that. Being able to see through the walls.
This was awesome. I thought this was very, very interesting.
Well, like this seems like an invasion of privacy, like with Starfleet being all about their rights, and there are no security cameras anywhere on the station, but you can do this. This is a real, like, if Quark had this technology, like he could always know where Odo's at, or he can see it. Like this seems like this should be restricted tech.
I think it was, though, Dave. I mean, nobody really knew about it except for the chief.
Right. Even O'Brien, like he, I guess he's got the security clearance for it, but like Odo, knowing that Odo doesn't care too much about rights, he thinks that he would definitely use something like this. It's kind of cool how like the little like knob on the rifle was sort of the controller for how to navigate it. Because things like, what's that new thing with the Apple has with the goggles, like the Vision Pro or whatever, like that was still 25 years away. So this was like almost imagining what this kind of technology could be like, right? what you're seeing through on the screen, and how your eye could control it, like in the modern ways, and how it can follow your hands. So I did enjoy all that then, and I still do now, seeing how it was. This other scene here where she finds the guy and she's like, he's about 35. I'm like, that guy's 35. Like, he seems much older than that. Or like, do people just look older in 1999 at 35? I'm not so sure. Yeah, but she sees this guy, and he basically, Joran's egging to kill him. I'm like, is it that easy? Why do you want to kill this guy? Why does he want Joran again? Like, had been established like he was a psycho or a killer, but like he wasn't necessarily this like, I'll kill anybody, I'll kill randomly.
This didn't make sense to me either, because he tries to get her to kill the guy, and then she won't, and then he says the gun isn't loaded. She would know that he's not really there.
Correct.
Like,
so I don't know.
Been the one loading the weapon.
I don't know, because we are watching an inner monologue, basically, right? It's kind of like Ezri. It's a little bit Ezri is talking to the Dax symbiote, right? So we're kind of getting that dichotomy, which we don't normally get with the Trill stories like this, right? Where it's other than that Shintara one where Curzon was specifically pulled out, but that wasn't Dax, that was Curzon. This is more, I feel like, Ezri talking to Duran, but also kind of all the previous hosts and to Dax, right? And sort of like how much is Ezri still in control of her own self, right? So I think that's kind of interesting.
I thought she was completely in control of her own self. Yeah, but I mean, I guess it's like the good angel and the bad angel on the shoulders, and you're trying to figure out who to listen to.
Right. Quark comes along here in the promenade, because Ezri's talking to herself or talking to Duran, and she's like, how you doing? You want a drink? You want to go anywhere? She's like, no, thanks, anywhere. And Duran says he'd like to stab him between the ribs or something like that. Like Duran is like a straight up, like, just wants to kill everybody and anybody all the time. That's just I guess how he was, but he also was a great musician, so keep that in mind.
They did keep that going. He does play a piano briefly.
Right. It was more like an organ. Yeah. Anyway, but they're still trying to solve this murder. That they keep showing us the photo. It's like it's to the audience. It's like it's the photo. Like the photo is the clue. You gotta look at the photos here. She looks at the photo. Then they go to the woman's quarters. The woman that was murdered. It's all messy. Duran says this woman, that we find out she was married. We get to see a moving picture. That was also the other sci-fi thing shown in this episode. Was like the move, like the animated photo, kind of like the Harry Potter movies hadn't even. Yeah,
and in the 90s, that was super cool.
This was like, look, in the future we're gonna have you press a button and the picture goes
or even the fact that you could have multiple have multiple images and they slide off the screen. You can just have that's like wild. Like, yeah,
that was like the futuristic. This was 25 years ago. Like, it's which is kind of crazy. Is like, when we were watching this, that's how long ago or even longer it had been since original series, right? So like that's how far in the past it was, and they were looking at the future and saying we're going to have communicators, which became cell phones, and and whatever. So it's kind of really interesting, kind of looking back on some of this stuff. I don't know if we have guns that can shoot through walls yet, but we're working on it.
They're working on it.
If we could, we would. With like if we had little mini transporters. Anyway, this dialogue continues between Duran and Ezri throughout the episode. This is the scene where they're like, get him, there's a guy trying to escape. She's like, it's the murderer, it must be the murderer. He's coming down. She tackles him. He hits her in the process. She grabs a knife,
grabs a butter knife.
She was going to do nothing with that butter knife. I happen to know, even for butter knives, those ones are super dull. I used to own those ones.
Yes.
Well, she could stab him in the eye. But
this was a random scene. Like
but this is attempted murder, isn't it? This is she didn't have to.
No, she didn't do anything. She just threatened him.
She tackled him and held a knife to his head.
Yeah, but he was running, so I mean, she had every right to tackle him. But
I guess, but but Odo says that's enough. No more stabby from you, Ezri.
Obviously, they're trying to show that she's been affected by Duran, but I could think of 1,000 different and better ways.
I don't
do
like
that.
I don't like that execution so much. And here, Cisco's like, "What the hell? Why are you trying to stab a guy with a letter opener?" And she's like, "Sorry, it's kind of hard to explain." He's like, "Why don't you try?" It's kind of, this scene is like hilarious because Duran's there, but he doesn't know that and how this all plays out. And he lets her off, but I'm like, why? You should be more concerned here, Cisco. You should not be accepting her answers as easily as you are. But he's a little suspicious, but he's not quite gonna like pull her off the case because she says like if she told Cisco that she had Duran sort of in the picture, he would shut her off. He would take her off the case.
Well, and also, Dave, let's face it, she's making more headway than Odo is, so you gotta go with something.
It's true. Like you think they would be working as partners, but they're not. Like it seems like they're doing separate investigations completely. So anyway, she gets mad at this point. She goes back to her mud and she's going to do the ritual and get Duran sort of out of here. But he's like, you need me. And she's doing the thing in the mirror. But then I think she gets a call about another murder, right? The third murder. He's like, a third murder. I'm not out of the picture yet. We find out that it's a Bolian guy who Jadzia knew. And so Dax knows. We got a mention of a co-husband here. It's kind of like the first like same-sex marriage, I think, mentioned maybe in Star Trek. So, hey, we're ahead of their times. This is like, well, we know it's not a human thing, serial killer, because a Bolian's dead now. So we're even more mysteries. Ezra continues her investigation. She's looking through. Duran makes a comment. It's weird how he's looking at things when she's looking in an opposite direction, because again, he's not really there. So he can't really look at anything, but she saw the photo earlier. So it's kind of like she's thinking about it in her mind, I think, and saying like, how can this cat smile with such ugly kids? I think is the comment or something. That she goes, that's it. It's smiling people, smiling photos. There's like a montage where she literally goes to the different quarters. It goes, it's like that, like kind of like those spin cuts. And look here, this photo too, and this one. It's like it's all
because nobody smiles in photos.
Nobody smiles in photos. That's
also because she had to take him to view them all. Again, he's not real,
right? But she literally went around the room, like the places, just to confirm that people were actually smiling in his photos.
But do you think maybe she should be calling Odo at this point?
Definitely.
Right.
But then she's like, it's a Vulcan. It must be a Vulcan. Why would anyone be mad at people smiling? This is a kind of there could be other reasons. There could be a human murderer who doesn't like laughing. Why? It's not. Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily a Vulcan, but they're like, no, it's a Vulcan. And it turns out of the 900 Starfleet people here, there's like almost 100 Vulcans, I think, or something like that.
No. 900 officers. Like there must be like thousands of people on this space station.
True. Okay, so 900 officers. Oh no, it's 48 Vulcans because they have to rule out 47 because there's a 47 reference, right? So
yeah,
they have to narrow it down to one.
That was shocking to find out that there was that many Vulcans serving on the station. We never see them.
48 Starfleet specifically.
Yeah, 48.
Yeah. And then Ezri's like looking at every Vulcan, like, who is it? Who's the Vulcan who's murdering?
Yeah, suddenly they're everywhere.
Suddenly, it's all Vulcans. Vulcans at the table, Vulcans here, Vulcans there. You never see them, but
Two things I remember when I first watched this episode being really disappointed because right up until about this point, I thought they were going to make the killer Ezri. Like it was going to be Duran had taken over, and I think that would have been so much better.
And then you could have got rid of Ezri. It would have been fantastic.
Right. And then the other day I was thinking about they should have made it the Vulcan from Take Me Out to the Holosuite.
Oh, they get the
He was
captain.
angry at everybody laughing because they all made fun of him.
That's a better.
There, you've got a motive.
Captain whatever his name was, Soval or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, but no, it turns out that she doesn't have to do all the detective work because the Vulcan she's looking for just happens to walk into the turbo lift when she's in it.
And her imaginary friend identifies him immediately.
Right, her imaginary friend is like, it's him. I can tell. I studied his face, but she wasn't looking at him, so therefore Duran wasn't either.
Right, but wouldn't have this made so much more sense if she had recognized the guy, the other Vulcan, the captain from that other ship?
Maybe, yeah, I think so.
Would have made so much more sense.
Why? Yeah, he could be stopping through. Why not?
Yeah.
But and then she's talking to Duran. He's like, it's her. They make this eye contact in the chorus, and he's like, it's her, it's him. He's the murderer. I can tell. You have to get him now. I can tell by the twitch in his eye. I don't know. I guess that's that. I don't really get that, but because again, Duran murdered people, but that doesn't mean he's an expert in identifying murderers, right?
No.
I don't. Anyway, we get Lieutenant Chulak's record here. He's 90-something years old. We're told. He's not because Vulcans live for like 300 years. So he's been around. He had been on a ship for like 10 years. They got destroyed recently in the Dominion War. So and he was only like 6 survivors, like out of 1,200 people or something like that.
The Grissom.
On the USS Grissom. Yes, I think that was the name of the ship. USS Strata. His record has been exemplary, with the exception of a minor note by a chief medical officer, Dr. Martin Backram, for psychological instability, possible psychological instability. It was right here. The evidence was right here. That's what it says.
Is that the font on all of these things? Because that is terrible.
It's a terrible font. You're not supposed to. It's at least it's not gibberish, but it's his record since it's been exemplary, with the exception of a minor note by the chief medical officer, Dr. Martin Backram, indicating some possible psychological instability. So might not be
a minor note.
It's a minor note, but he's awesome, except for minor, psychological instability. But
psychological instability.
Just a minor case. Current assignment, Deep Space Nine. That's his record. That's literally like the executive summary for Chulak. Interesting name too for a Vulcan, Chulak. Anyway, so they're kind of giving us this whole story, and they're like, get the gun, go see what he's doing right now. So she puts on the viewfinder. She's got the gun. She goes through all the quarters. This is kind of cool. Again, we got another sequence with this. I like that they did twice. She's like, he's at his desk. He's looking at something. He's like, what's he looking at? Oh, well, he's looking at the thing. Oh, he's looking at my record. Da, da, da. He knows I'm onto him. He knows from that turbo lift thing that it's me. Because she says, I'm Counselor Dax. And he goes, I know. That was like what happened in the turbo lift. She's like, he's getting the gun. He has the gun. And then she loads hers. And basically, like she's aiming right at him. She sees him get his version, and they end up being able to see at each other, which is kind of an interesting thing.
That wasn't really well done. Everything, I found this just too quick.
It is a quick draw here.
I agree.
He sees
and we were running
her.
out of time. I guess we're running out of time. That's why it was so quick. But
yeah, well, she shoots. She shoots first, but he also shoots too. But I guess he shot, he was partly hit by her, so he kind of missed. He was off target slightly as we see the thing blow up behind him. And then, but she, and even now, she doesn't call Odo.
No, but there's weapons fired. You think they're going to have some kind of like detector that shows bullets?
Yeah, you think that why would an internal sensors, but O'Brien says that the transporter signal is too weak. You can't detect it because it's too small.
Yeah, I know, but I got Dave. On the Enterprise, they would have figured this out.
Again, you have Worf. He exactly. When Worf got here, he was not happy with Odo. I'm fully on Worf's side in terms of how they run things on this station. And the explanation Worf's given is like, this is a Bajoran station. Well, does it have to be dysfunctional? Like, why can't just because
there's always Federation ships showing up? They could bring some technology along.
like, hey, we do it a little better on the starships. Maybe we could do that better here. How does that sound? Right? No, we don't want to do it. That's not a Bayshore. That's not how we do
They've had 7 years on this station, and it's still like, wow, it's Cardassian station.
People are gonna get murdered sometimes, and what are you gonna do? And so it's tough. But anyway, she shows up here as Chulak was trying to get to his rifle. I don't know if he was trying to shoot Ezri again or try to find her again. But she gets him here, and of course, Duran egging her to shoot him in the face. He deserves to die. He does. But she ultimately does not kill him. She doesn't go with her evil Duran instincts. Instead, now, after she's walked across the station and kept in the corner and held this gun to this guy's head, she's like, and I will not kill you. Now I will call the authorities. And then
the infirmary only calls the infirmary.
True. Yeah. Like Odo is completely cut out of this whole thing.
Yep.
It's kind of, it's wild. And anyway, so then quickly, this is the Enterprise ending. She catches him, and then she's back in the mud, and she looks in the mirror, and he says, "You won't be able to suppress me anymore." She says, "I know," and now it's been integrated, and that's the end. Quick ending, guys. So
many questions.
So many questions. What's your number one question, Adam?
Like what happened exactly to that Vulcan that made him so angry?
He was so sad about the loss of his friends that he started murdering people who had pictures of people laughing and having fun. That's what we're told. And
then he says it's logical. Okay, well, explain that, please.
Yeah, because
it doesn't seem logical at all.
Right, and we know that there are bad Vulcans. Well, Enterprise, it hadn't happened yet, but technically it had, in terms of the chronology of the show. But yeah,
I like what Norman said there. It's always the Vulcan.
It's always in Trek. It's always the Vulcan with the reveal. Shiny, happy people killer, and Cucumber Eye with that thing there. Adam, do you have any facts for us?
I do. So Tony Dow of aforementioned Leave It to Beaver was hired to direct this episode at the suggestion of Dow's friend actor Bill Mummy, who previously guest starred in the Deep Space episode The Siege of AR-558 as Kellen.
So what's the connection between Bill Mummy and Leave It to Beaver?
Friend. That's all there. I guess Tony needs some money, maybe. I'm not sure. I watched a lot of Leave It to Beaver as a kid. Hugh Beaumont, Barbara Billingsley, Tony Dow, and Jerry Mathers as the Beaver. It was so much fun.
Never watched it really, but I know.
I watched a ton of it.
Yeah. Illyria's last exchange with Dax is a play on the exchange between British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and Bessie Braddock, a member of Parliament. Miss Braddock had reportedly told Churchill, "Sir, you are drunk," to which Churchill replied, "Bessie, my dear, you are ugly, and what's more, you are disgustingly ugly. But tomorrow I shall be sober, and you will be still disgustingly ugly."
It's a callback to that, guys. Do you know what I think happened here? Because Tony Dow had directed a few episodes of Babylon 5, and I think because Bill Mummy was like on Star Trek, he's like, my friend Tony Dow, he directs Babylon 5, he can direct Star Trek. That's what happened there.
Fair enough. Can't blame Tony Dow for the episode. There's a lot of LeVar Burton episodes we sucked and
yeah, true.
So Odo states that there's 900.
I know when I'm not wanted.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Odo states there are 900 Starfleet officers posted on the station. Everybody's an officer, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think it's maybe not every. I think he meant personnel, but yeah.
I like this a lot better. The working title of this episode was called "The Killer in Dax."
Well, the Field of Fire is a terrible title.
Yeah,
the Killer in Dax. I don't know. It's better, I guess. It's more on the nose, but I think they could work.
This is the first mention of a Boolean having a wife and a co-husband, implying that the Booleans are a race practicing in the form of polygamy.
Polygamy, so maybe more like the Denoblians.
Yeah.
Yep.
Since Lieutenant Commander Vanderweg was described as a science officer and had not been on the station for 3 years, it's possible she served under Jagzia Dax for most of that time and was promoted after her death.
Oh, yeah, she inherited this post. Maybe it's cursed the science officer position on Deep Space Nine.
Maybe.
But wouldn't this Chulak guy have served under her? Wouldn't he? He could have been her boss, right? Because he was a science officer.
Yeah.
Know that rank.
The 47 reference, as you called out, Joran says they have to eliminate 47 Vulcan suspects to find the killer.
Yes. Were you guys thrilled when you heard that in the episode? Did you know right away?
Yes, I was totally thrilled. I could feel your pain already, and it sustains me.
Yes, good. I just wanted to make sure because at least some good comes from this.
Yeah, and it winds down with nothing really else. Really fun facts. They're kind of boring facts this week, Dave. So let's move on to ratings.
Okay, all right. Well,
sorry, I got one for you. This is kind of cool here. So Lieutenant Chulak is described as having served on board the USS Grissom. This is the second ship in the canon to be named after Gus Grissom, the American astronaut who died tragically. The first being in the science vessel in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Both ships were destroyed by Federation enemies, the first by Klingons and the second by the Dominion.
Okay. Well, thank you, Adam, for that. Let's get to our rating.
Nice melon.
All right. Jeff not with us tonight. I will start us off. I'm giving this, it's like a 6 for me. It's all right.
Yeah, I imagine it's going to be better than last week.
Yeah, that was rough. Jaemeel not with us. Jody also not with us. Adam, what's your rating?
I'm giving this a 6 as well.
6. Kevin?
I'm going to give this a 5 for middling effort.
Davan, I don't think he gave us any rating that I saw. So
Dave, it was funny. I'm here down in Florida at my sister's house, and she watched her first Deep Space Nine episode, being this one, with me yesterday.
Her first Deep Space Nine episode ever. This is not the one.
And she goes, she goes, I don't even know what happened. It was nothing made sense.
This is not the episode you come in on for the whole, for all of Deep Space Nine.
She goes, if you want my opinion, it's terrible.
Right. So if you're coming in cold on Field of Fire, it's probably well below a 6. You're saying, especially if she had watched any Star Trek before.
Oh yeah, but not Deep Space Nine.
Not Deep Space Nine. Okay. Yeah, this would be confusing. You're a Vulcan serial killer. This has a 6.6 on IMDb, so it has a higher rating than last week's episode. Tony Dow directed.
Yep,
Robert Hewitt Wolf. And it came out, guys, almost February 10th, 1999, 25 years ago to this month. So only off by a few days. We're kind of watching it almost same time here. But our average rating tonight, 5.7, with Kevin bringing that a little bit down. We'll see if the others boost that up. So that's not great, but it's not the worst either. It's very mid.
The worst was last week.
What was it, IMDb's rating on this?
It gave it a 6.6. So same as Covenant. Same rating there. The ratings seemed a little high, but I think the people who go out of their way to vote for these particular episodes on IMDb might be a very specific group.
I'd say those two episodes are pretty comparable in their quality.
Yeah. Sam's saying 6.5 as well. So one Dax out of 10. I think it's actually I think I'm like the eighth host at this point, Norman. Field of Fire was a minor hit by Big Country in the 80s. So maybe they were hoping to capitalize that. People would turn on the episode thinking, oh, is the country song on? Is it like CMT? Oh, no, it's a Deep Space Nine episode. But now that I'm here, I can't look away. But maybe the Nielsen ratings, that's all I care about. Tricking people into it. Guys, the next episode is called Chimera, which is the 164th episode of the show, which is the one with Odo and Laws.
Ezri's not in this one featured?
She's not really in the next one too much. The next episode is an Odo heavy episode.
Where he solves no crimes.
He solves no crimes at all. That's not even. It's all about changeling stuff, really, and it features our friend of the channel, J.G. Hertzler, as not playing Martok, but playing another changeling named Laws. So Adam, I'm not going to tell you much more. I want you to just watch this without any kind of opinion from us. It's actually when JG was on in our interview, he's like he talked a little bit about playing this character. He's like, I need to make it different than Martok. I'll just speak softer, is what he said. So we're gonna, I'll probably have some audio clips. But he does it physically. He looks very different in the role too.
Yeah.
Get Terry Farrell on the show. I'll get Terry. If Terry Farrell wants to come on and do an interview with us, we would have her in a second. Let's get Davan's the one got Hertzler. Let's say get Farrell, get them all. Let's get Avery Brooks down here. That would be great. Any Deep Space Nine cast, I would love to have them on the show. Okay, guys. Sure. Well, anything else before we sign off here?
Looking for a good episode next week, Dave. Looking for a good one.
It's not the worst. It's not the worst episode. It's just not my favorite. So, but then after that, we get Bada Bang, which is a Vic Fontaine, which I think you will enjoy. I think you're going to enjoy that episode.
I think I remember now, like, I said I never really watched Deep Space Nine. And I kept coming in and out of it over the years, but it was like you get an episode and then you wait 5 weeks for a good one.
Well, it depends what you consider good, right? Like I was really into like the storyline with the war, so I was like, okay, let's get back to like what's going on with Dukat and the war and Wayoon and Damar and all those guys, right? And it's like, no, but hold on, like we got Ezri is going to solve a murder, or hey, watch out, like O'Brien's dealing with that Orion Syndicate stuff, or baseball game even, right? So there's all kinds of different stuff happening. They were trying to go for, because they knew that the show was going to end with sort of like this really intense stuff, which is yet to come. So we're gonna get to that stuff, but are we in the back half now? Because this goes to 26 episodes, and this was episode 13, right? So. Yeah. So I guess we're halfway through the season, guys. Anyway. All right. And Adam, we were going to talk about Miles O'Brien on a podcast on the with Locutors, a supplemental with Dave Pugsley and Davan Skelhorn.
So we're going to try. I gave Davan some dates Thursday on, so hopefully we can get back up with that episode.
Hopefully. Do I have a Brian on the board here?
Give me warp in the factor of 5, 6, 7, 8.
I always have the wrong one. I always think I need to make it that one.
Harder it is.
There it is. That was the O'Brien clip. It's 6, not 5. All right. Well, we're going to get around to that soon. Star Trek Discovery coming near future, Adam. We're going to be talking about that with Michael Chan probably and others. When that
did Michael Chan really shave his head, or is this just a rumor?
He's committed. He's a method actor, and he's going to be playing Charles Xavier in a Star Trek radio theater that's not Star Trek. We're doing an X-Men radio theater, and if you it's kind of a whole thing that's coming up in a few weeks on the X-Men channel. I think we're going to do it on the X-Men channel. I'm playing Scott Summers, Cyclops, and Michael Chan could play Professor X. I can't remember who Kevin's playing, but
he looks really good with the head shave. Actually, in that picture.
Yeah. Who are you?
Colossus.
You're Russian.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, look out for that over on the United Federation podcast sister channel, the X-Rated. I think we're going to be doing that on that channel as well. Davan will probably send me a message. No, it's happening somewhere else. You don't have the details right. I might not. So just take what I say with a grain of salt there. Well, also Survivor guys coming back. Did you guys know on Super Mario Brothers? We already did our draft in Survivor, and it's exciting.
Season 49 or something.
46.
Good Lord.
I drafted the Canadian, Sam. I know he's listening. So for you, just I'm trying to set up a cast preview. Jaemeel and Jeff are very hard to get on the same night. Just saying.
We'll be there, Dave. Just kidding. We're not going to be there.
No, you won't be there. And anyway, and all that note, look for that on the United Federation podcast, ufpodcast.com. Great stuff. All right. Well, on that note, I was like, what are we going to play out here? And I think it should be this Duran Dax, this creepy music, the theme for Duran Dax. We'll play you out on. See you next time, guys. here on Live Long and Podcast.
This is no time to be modest.
Short and to the point.
Man, Dave, kill it.
See you next time, everyone. Live Long and Podcast.
Now let's get out of here.